Alright, it says we're live. Alright, what is up, everyone? Sean Count Blagrith here today with a couple special guests for Black Metal Essentials Parts 3 and 4. Today we're going to be taking a look at two albums from Darkthrone, Transylvanian Hunger and Panzerfaust. For those of you that have not watched this series, I pretty much discuss albums I feel like personally are absolutely crucial to not only the history of black metal, but are absolutely near perfection. And last time I did this, I talked about A Blaze in Northern Sky by Darkthrone and Under a Funeral Moon. With that said, this is going to conclude the Darkthrone part of this series. And to help me talk about these two albums, I have two guests here today. Brandon, aka Absent Productions, and then
Hello.
we have Patrick from Counterbeat.
Hey.
And you guys can introduce yourselves, whoever wants to go first.
All right.
I'll start, I
Pat,
guess.
you can go. Yeah,
All right.
you can go.
I gotta do my intro. You've reached Counterbeat, YouTube outsider, the voice of the voiceless. My experience with black metal started, well, I guess 2002, with listening to the Bathory discography backwards, and then eventually getting to the beginning of that discography with that black metal. And Darkthrone specifically was a band that took me a long time to be able to get into, even once I was into black metal, because of the primitive and harsh nature of it.
All right. Well, for me, my history with black metal doesn't extend very far. It only goes back to about 2012 or so, and it's actually thanks to both Pat and Sean, who helped me discover the whole entire realm, the musical world of black metal. And it actually basically stems back right to these two records that we're talking about today, Transylvanian Hunger and Panzerfaust. It was Transylvanian Hunger that really first opened me up to what black metal could be. When I first thought of black metal, I honestly thought in the same lines of death metal, just due to inexperience, as I'm more known for being into both progressive metal and the more melodic and modern side of things, and I never really took the time to explore the depths of black metal. But it was Transylvanian Hunger that I first heard that actually opened me up, and I realized just what black metal could be.
Alright, cool. And you guys are watching this, so you know my history with black metal. I fucking love it, and that's about where it ends. Alright, so we're going to talk about Transylvanian Hunger first. Transylvanian Hunger was a 1994 release by Peaceville Records. This came right after the release of Under a Funeral Moon. Basically, if you look at the discography of Darkthrone, you have the death metal era, which was the demos and Soulside Journey. Then with the black metal stuff, they started to become black metal with A Blaze in Northern Sky. And then after that, there were still tinges of death metal here and there, as I said, in Black Metal Essentials 1. It's still an incredible album, in my opinion. But it still had a little bit of a death metal vibe to it. And that's where Under a Funeral Moon came in. Under a Funeral Moon was much more stripped down. It was even more raw than A Blaze in Northern Sky. The guitar sound on it is absolutely piercing, and the songwriting is absolutely simplistic. But Transylvanian Hunger, to me, picks up where that album left off perfectly. In fact, I feel like they stripped it down even further with Transylvanian Hunger, whereas Under a Funeral Moon had more, I don't want to say slower parts. It had a bit more, I don't even want to say groove, it's hard to explain. It had a bit more driving moments rather than blasting. Whereas Transylvanian Hunger, from beginning to end, drum-wise is essentially the same thing. From beginning to end. Yeah. if, and if you guys want to say something about like the drums or whatever, go for it.
Yeah, I really enjoy listening to the progression of those first four black metal albums, and the unique thing about the progression from Under a Funeral Moon to Transylvanian Hunger was how Under a Funeral Moon was very, first of all, diverse musically in terms of tempo, whereas Transylvanian Hunger is just extremely consistent stylistically. You know, it really defines that second wave black metal style and just sticks to it. Another thing that's interesting about Under a Funeral Moon is how the uh, the loudness of the toms in terms of the production. And going back to what Sean was saying, yeah, Transylvanian Hunger, in just about every aspect, is a lot more stripped down and a lot more primitive.
Yeah, it really is. And honestly, that's something that at first I probably could have never pictured myself enjoying. I mean, the majority of people who know me from my Absent Productions channel know that I'm very much into the realm of progressive metal, and a lot of those bands are very well produced, and some might argue, including the two that I'm talking to today, would definitely argue that most of them are overproduced, and I totally understand where they're coming from. Of course, I personally enjoy it, but that's okay. So coming into the realm of black metal and the band Darkthrone and these records, Transylvanian Hunger and Panzerfaust, it's really kind of a shock to the system when you're listening to something like Transylvanian Hunger being so raw, stripped down, and bare bones when it comes to the musical side of things, the instrumentation, especially the vocal work. I mean, Nocturnal Culto's vocals on these records are visceral. I mean, I don't think I can really describe it well, obviously not being an expert on black metal by any means, but Nocturnal Culto on these records is such a raw and visceral vocalist. There's nothing that I've ever really heard that can match up to it. So with these records, the whole raw side of the production, and especially the drumming on these records, was a really unique take for me, because I normally come from the realm of music where there's a lot of time signature changes mid-song, a lot of tempo changes. There's a lot of different stuff going on, especially in the drumming. But coming into this record, you have basically the same drumming throughout the entire thing. For the entire, what is it, basically 40-minute or so affair, you have basically the same, kick drum, the same tom, you have the same snare, the same cymbals. It basically continues on for the entire record, but it just adds to the beauty of it, I suppose. When I think about black metal, Transylvanian Hunger, and to a slightly lesser degree Panzerfaust are exactly what I think of when it comes to both production and the drumming, and of course the vocals, which I had mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and the thing is with the drumming too is when you look at it, as Pat said, the tempo changes. The difference between Under a Funeral Moon and Transylvanian Hunger is quite the big difference. And the other thing that's so cool about this record to me is there's nothing that really sounded like this in the early 90s, even in the first wave of black metal. Because around 94 was the release of De Mysteriis Dom Sathanas from Mayhem, where that had much more diverse drum work. And then even the bands that preceded Darkthrone, such as Bathory and Hellhammer, Celtic Frost, Sarcophago, they had a bit more of a diverse drum work than what Fenris did on Transylvanian Hunger. And to me, that really adds to the absolutely barbaric and almost, I don't want to say ritualistic, but it definitely adds to a hypnotic vibe with the same sort of blast beat over and over again, as Fenris calls it, the sprinkler, because of the sort of sound that it makes. The only thing you could really compare it to, it came before this, to a more melodic Sarcophago in all reality, with a little bit of Bathory thrown in for good measure. And the thing is, too, with these songs that makes it vastly different from Under a Funeral Moon is the fact that the guitar riffs, there's maybe like, what, maybe 3, 4 riffs per song.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's honestly not that many. I mean, you're not going to get, 20 different parts here when you're switching from verse to chorus to, bridge and pre-chorus and all that. You're not going to get, a million different things being thrown at you from every different angle on the guitar. You're generally going to have your main riff, you're going to have a riff they go to for a bridge, and maybe a riff they go to for the chorus, though that may be the same thing as the verse, which actually happens a few times on this record. The verse riff will actually be the same as the chorus riff. So it's very simplistic and stripped down in nature, but it works so well.
Yeah, there's definitely, because of that repetitive nature of, using the same melodies and the riffs repetitively, there's a trance-like quality that comes forth in the music in Transylvanian Hunger more than any other of the black metal Darkthrone albums.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing, too, that adds to the beauty of this record is, when you first hear it, at least for me, I didn't really grasp what was going on because it was so primitive and barbaric. But the beauty with the repetition is it becomes catchy. And that's what makes this album such a grabber, is once when you get a firm grasp on what this album is about, you really start to find how catchy it is. And, like, for example, the classic song Transylvanian Hunger, that riff is absolutely iconic, not only because of how damn good it is, but how catchy it is. It's one that will be stuck in your head for days upon days. And I think that's just a really awesome trait that Darkthrone was able to make it so primitive and barbaric, yet borderline melodic in the guitar parts when you consider how repetitive it is and how simplistic it is.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, Transylvania Hunger, the track, the title track, is the perfect example of that. When you guys were showing me what, black metal was, Pat was showing me stuff like Bathory, and Sean, you were trying to show me both Burzum and Darkthrone. Transylvanian Hunger was probably the one song that stuck out from the bunch that you guys had shown me. The main riff of that song, the melodic nature to it, and just the overall, again, the simplicity of it is just like nothing I've ever heard. And like you had said, it's so catchy and so melodic that for probably days and days on end after you guys were first showing me what black metal was, that had stuck with me, and that's what kept me returning to this style and returning to black metal, and more so returning to Transylvanian Hunger, which would later lead on to, of course, a lot of other black metal, but it would lead on to the other record, Panzerfaust, too.
It's interesting when you're getting into black metal and when you're getting into Darkthrone. Once you're able to sonically be able to peer through all that distortion and noise, it's incredible just how bold the melodies are. And Transylvanian Hunger, the melody in Transylvanian Hunger, as you both said, it's so damn catchy. It's funny now, listening to that track, and humming along to it, and then thinking back to before I could get into Darkthrone, and it's like not being able to hear that there was a melody at all.
Right, yeah. And I definitely had that issue, too. I mean, a couple of years ago when you guys were showing me all that stuff, it was, like I said a little while ago, it was a shock to go from listening to the stuff I do to turning to Darkthrone. I mean, that is a big leap in terms of production,
Yeah.
mastering, and mixing, and of course, guitar playing, the drumming, the vocals, the overall, music side of things. It's a drastic leap in both quality and what they're doing in the instrumentation. But there was a certain tonality to Darkthrone and Transylvanian Hunger that after a few weeks of you guys showing me black metal stuff, that just captivated me time and time again. And now I consider Transylvanian Hunger to be one of my personal favorite black metal records, though I'm a relatively new listener to the style and the genre. I have still listened to a fair amount, as you both know, because you are pretty much the reason I got into it, and you're the ones that have showed me all this stuff. But Transylvanian Hunger is a record I can definitely continue to come back to. When it comes to black metal, it's a record I can easily return to time and time again if I'm looking to scratch that black metal itch.
It's interesting. You know, I think this goes towards specifically in black metal just what kind of intuitive great songwriting can do, that you can have these really simple riffs and melodies and yet they become extremely iconic. And despite the fact that they're often repeated, you can keep coming back to it and not be bored and not be sick of it. I mean, I've listened to this album I don't know how many times. I can't possibly count. But every time it's just an extremely enjoyable experience, and I think that really speaks volumes about the songwriting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other thing too, when you consider this, that this whole album was written by Fenriz musically. That's him performing every single thing, other than vocals, obviously. He wrote all the music, and I think that speaks a lot about Fenriz too, when you consider the massive change between Under a Funeral Moon to Transylvanian Hunger after they lost, I believe it was Zephyrus? Yeah, Zephyrus, when they lost him. Allegedly, from what I remember reading, it was he went into the woods and never returned. So that's one hell of a way to lose a member. But after he walked in the woods, I guess this was around the time when Fenriz started to distance himself from the black metal scene that was happening in Norway because he didn't want to end up in jail. And he just didn't really appeal to him, the whole thought of being part of a scene or whatever. To him, he's always wanted to be isolated and let the music speak for itself. And I think the fact that he isolated himself around the time of the making of this record really shows, like, his state of mind of what metal should be. And I think that's a really cool look, not only into black metal, but really at the mind of Fenriz, to the fact that he was able to sit down and come up with this absolutely primitive music and go from being already a pretty damn primitive band to being one of the most stripped down bands in black metal at the time. I think that's absolutely awesome. And it also says a lot about him as a musician and a songwriter to craft all these songs, like 8 tracks, all by himself, performing every single song. I think that's really, really awesome. And going to the vocals, as Brandon touched upon, these are some of the most, as he said, visceral vocals you'll hear on a Darkthrone record. The only one that comes close is the next one we're going to talk about, which is Panzerfaust. This one, it definitely has the traits of Under a Funeral Moon and A Blazing Northern Sky, but it's much more refined. His vocals have much more of a direct approach, and the power behind them is absolutely insane because at a few points it sounds like he's clipping the mic as he's screaming these absolutely barbaric, violent-sounding screams. And the thing, too, that's really interesting about this record when compared to other Darkthrone records is there's only one song in English. And the lyrics to Transylvanian Hunger are absolutely incredible and among my absolute favorites in black metal. But the thing is with the Norwegian lyrics, I feel like it works extremely well in the aspect of it sounds even more hateful in delivery. and I feel like that adds to the album so much. And I need to find translations because Varg Vikernes of Burzum actually wrote, I believe it was 4 sets of lyrics for this particular album, and I believe he also did a set or 2 for Panzerfaust. I think that's really cool that they kind of worked with him, and Varg offered to write some lyrics. And I just feel like the Norwegian lyrics really add to the really evil, barbaric vibe to it, because it just really makes the vocals sound even more anger and hate-filled.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially the final few tracks on the record. Varg did the final 4 tracks on the record, I believe. I actually just pulled out the vinyl sleeve to look at it. Yeah, the final 4 tracks are all by Varg, Count Grishnak, as he's credited on the record itself. And those final 4 tracks, especially the final song, I have the Wikipedia page pulled up here, it translates to A Hill in the Deep Forest. That is probably, even though I obviously have no idea what they are saying, it's probably my favorite, vocals and lyrics on it. Just the way they, fit in with the music on the final track on the record. I think, in my personal opinion, it's my favorite part of the record, and in my opinion, it's probably the best of the lyrical side of things and potentially the vocal side of things when it comes to Transylvanian Hunger. I just think it fits so well in that song in particular. So I think Varg's lyrical contributions to that track, and all the tracks in general, but especially the final track, is just incredible. It really is.
And I really enjoy the vocal evolution, specifically that happens on this album and then continues on Panzerfaust. You can have black metal vocals that, obviously sound very scary and evil, but there are certain black metal vocals that can come off cold, and certain vocals that can express a lot of emotion. And I feel like on this album, Nocturno Culto really hits his stride in terms of being able to express a great deal more emotion. Now that emotion, obviously isn't lovey-dovey and rainbows, it's hatred and misanthropy and violence, but I think my point still stands.
Oh, it does, absolutely. This is I do want to say it's emotional. I want to say it's like a very emotional vocal performance, but I don't want it to sound like it's all lovey-dovey rainbow emotional, because it's absolutely not what I mean.
Yeah,
But
you could
yeah,
feel himself pouring all of himself on the vocal tracks.
absolutely.
Definitely.
And I mean, once we get into Panzerfaust, there's this story from Fenris where he was sitting in the opposite room as he was recording the vocals to Panzerfaust, and I'm sure this would apply to Transylvanian Hunger, where he could feel the floor shake from Nocturnal Culto's voice, which speaks volumes about how utterly barbaric his vocals are, and especially on Panzerfaust, when you get to songs like Quintessence, which we'll talk about, the vocals just become so barbaric, and it sounds physically painful. As someone who can growl and scream, thinking about sounding like that makes my throat cry. And the same goes with Transylvanian Hunger. And the thing is, too, with it's so weird to say this because the guitar and everything, everyone has said it. It's one of the coldest records in black metal due to the production and its stripped-down nature. But even the vocals on it adds that harsh, cold quality to it, almost just like abrasive wind hitting you in your face as you're out in a snowy forest or something. It's truly something special, and I can really see why this album has been acclaimed by many as being one of the greatest albums in black metal of all time. And honestly, it's influenced so many bands that it's impossible to deny the influence of this record, and for you not to hear the influence upon the thousands upon thousands of other black metal bands. So not only is this album near perfection, in my opinion, in terms of black metal, but for the legacy that it leaves behind, you can't help but factor that in when you talk about this record.
Oh,
Definitely.
absolutely. There are very few, records that someone would instantly turn to and say, that is a timeless classic, and that has influenced hundreds and hundreds of bands that followed in their footsteps. There aren't that many albums you can say that about, but Transylvanian Hunger really did that for a lot of black metal, from 94, 95 and onward especially. Bands around that time, I'm sure, took great influence from Transylvanian Hunger, and I'm sure a lot of those bands had a great deal of respect for what Darkthrone were doing musically. So a lot of bands, would later almost copy the sound but put their own take on it, and I feel it helped black metal almost progress in a way, despite the fact that Transylvanian Hunger stripped a lot of stuff back and made it a more primitive experience. I feel like Transylvanian Hunger, in a way, helped push black metal forward. That might be a weird thing to say,
No,
but
absolutely.
like when I think about black metal, and the sound that Transylvanian Hunger brought to the table, a lot of bands would cite it as their starting point with black metal, and a lot of bands would cite it as one of their main influences. So Transylvanian Hunger, really helped push, the boundaries almost of black metal and helped, push the genre forward.
It's interesting. Only in black metal can you progress by being regressive.
It's true, because, I mean, look at, as you and me obviously love war metal, it's
Yeah.
black metal progressed into a new territory by becoming even more barbaric, and you can't sit there and deny the influence of Transylvanian Hunger on those bands with how simplistic they are and how stripped down everything is, because you don't get fancy tom fills. You don't get anything technical. And it's funny, if you listen to the commentary discs that come with reissues, I sadly don't have those, but I listen to the commentary.
I do have that. I have the digipack version that comes with the interview and everything from the band.
Well,
I have that.
Well, there's that. I've watched the interview, but there's also the new reissues that come in a digibook that have a bonus disc of the whole album with Fenris talking over it. And it's kind of funny. I forgot which album it was, but he did a fill that was a little fast. He's like, "Oh, look at me being all technical fancy pants." And he was saying that that's what he wanted to avoid. And I mean, it was a pretty simplistic fill, too. Even I could play. Well, I thought that was pretty funny, and I think that speaks volumes, too, about how barbaric this album is and how simple. You don't get anything flashy. Even in the production department, it just stays consistent throughout the whole thing, consistently stripped down, consistently raw.
Yeah.
It's just an absolute masterpiece.
In my opinion, this album, Transylvanian Hunger, is like the quintessential second wave example of what black metal is. If an alien came down to Earth and said, "Hey, what's this black metal? Can you play me a record?" It would be Transylvanian Hunger. Now, I don't know why aliens are specifically coming to this planet to listen to black metal, but that is definitely the record that I would show them. It really, really refines that sound down to its purest essence. In a way that I don't think any other album has been able to capture. Many great classics have come close, but this really refines and defines the second wave of black metal for me.
Oh, absolutely. And you were just talking about the simplistic and barbaric nature of everything. Let's talk about the artwork of Transylvanian Hunger and how stripped back and simplistic even that is. Let me try to get my...
Well, as Fenris talked in interviews and stuff, the reason why he did that was the fact that death metal at that time was starting to become everything he hated. It was becoming... He can't stand later death, just like me. Sorry, spoiler alert, everyone. I don't like later death. He was saying that once when Chuck started to make more technical riffs, it was starting not to appeal to him, and then he was trying to be politically correct in everything he was doing. There was these positive messages of don't do drugs, don't do any of this, and he felt like it was taking metal into a very sterile and kind of friendly place, and he wants metal to be a dangerous place. And the thing that went along with that was he was saying there was all these beautiful artistic paintings of all these different death metal albums at the time that were full of color, and he just hated that. So he was saying, he goes, as soon as you see those covers at that time, especially with the first one being A Blaze in the Northern Sky, it really stands out at that time, and it really speaks volumes about what it's about. And even when it comes to the interesting part is even the artwork on this album is stripped down compared to Under a Funeral Moon, because if you compare, there is at least some gray tones in this. Yeah. This one is just straight black and white.
Literally just a completely overexposed photo. That's Fenriz, right? Or is it Nocturnal Culto? I actually don't know.
That's Fenriz.
So you have Fenriz holding the candelabrum, I think that's what it's called. And just a completely overexposed, horrible quality picture blown up to the size that you see here on the vinyl. And it is honestly nearly frightening, the photo of it.
Yeah.
Like, you can see the pain on the face here in the artwork, and just the expression and the way he's holding the candelabrum and all that stuff. Like, all of that, just blends so perfectly with the music that you find inside,
Yeah. Side note, I believe in order of album covers, A Blaze in the Northern Sky, I know for sure this is Zephyrus. He played rhythm guitar at the time. And I believe this one, I think, is Nocturnal Culto. I believe that's who it is on the cover. I'm not 100% sure. I'm sure someone will correct me on that. And then, yes, that is Fenriz on that. But overall, for Transylvanian Hunger, I would say this is a perfect black metal record. Is it my favorite black metal record of all time? No. But it's definitely in my top 10 favorites of all time. Even just in general, it's an absolute masterpiece of what black metal is and should be.
Yeah, it never fails to give me that that cold vibe. It never fails to create that atmosphere of darkness, and it also it makes me want to do evil things when I listen to it, which I think is characteristic of a good black metal album, is generally creating in me the desire to do horrible atrocities against other human beings.
And one thing I do want to mention is with us living in North America, winter had just recently passed. We've only just recently turned into spring and then summer with the warmer months, and the past 5 months, 6 months or so, especially during the colder time in the winter, it was just a perfect time for these records to be listened to. And especially over this past year or so, the colder months were just a awesome time for me personally of discovering black metal and getting even deeper into it. I mean, I have a palette of like probably well over 100 bands now that I listen to just in the genre of black metal, which if you had told me that 3 years ago, I probably would have told you were crazy. But now I'm sitting here and the majority of my vinyl collection is black metal. A lot of my CDs are black metal now, and it's something I listen to on a nearly daily basis now. And Transylvanian Hunger helped start all that, and it was during the winter months that, both Sean and Pat were, talking to me and getting me into the realm of black metal. So Darkthrone's Transylvanian Hunger was basically the starting point for me.
Did he just completely lag out? Because he did for me.
Yeah, you went robot and then...
Yeah, that was quite the robot you went, Brandon.
Am I dead? Hello?
No,
you're
you're
back
not
now.
dead.
You're back now.
I had a fiery accident, but...
Oh, yeah. No, it's okay. It's okay, car crash, lots of screaming, deaf people, policemen, firemen, whatever.
Now, moving on to my favorite Darkthrone record. And this one is absolutely incredible. Darkthrone's 1995 release of Panzerfaust. Now, a little backstory on Panzerfaust. When Darkthrone formed, there was two bands that they wanted to promote with their sound. First one being Bathory, which they did with the previous three records. I feel like they emulated that Bathory sound quite well and took it in a new direction. The second one is Celtic Frost. Celtic Frost has always been one of the biggest influences on Fenris. And when it was time for them to record a new album, first of all, they left Peaceville Records, and they went with Moonfog Records, which is owned by Satyr of Satyricon. And I feel like that's quite an interesting move on their behalf, because at that time, Peaceville definitely wasn't a major label, but they were much bigger than Moonfog Recordings. So to me, that speaks volumes about Darkthrone as people. They've always went against the grain when it comes to musically, and when it comes to even their approach with what label they sign to. And I have massive amount of respect for that. Now, once again, this is an album that was written entirely by Fenris. Except for one set of lyrics, I believe Quintessence was written by Varg, the lyrics. Musically on this album, it's 50% Transylvanian Hunger-esque black metal, and 40% Celtic Frost worship, with one keyboard track on it, which is quite interesting, and we'll talk about that later. This album, it just screams atmosphere. It is by far the most barbaric album in Darkthrone's discography. This is so stripped down even further than Transylvanian Hunger, when you have songs like The Hordes of Nebula and Quintessence that are just super Celtic Frost-esque, but even more stripped down from that, because, I mean, The Hordes to Nebula on bass is just 001 bend. That's it. You don't get much more stripped down than that. And that's what they did, and it's awesome. The album starts off with a song I can't pronounce because I'm not Norwegian and I'm a big fat dumb American. It really welcomes you back to the Darkthrone sound with the Transylvanian Hunger-esque sort of stuff. And if I remember correctly from the commentary disc, this was one of the songs that was written during the Transylvanian Hunger sessions, and it shows. It carries along with that very simplistic blast beat sort of thing with maybe 3 riffs per song. And once again, the beauty of this record really lies in how simplistic it is and how he was able to create such amazing songs with this sound.
It's an album, talking about that first track. It's an album that, especially when you first hear it, after listening to Transylvanian Hunger, really plays with your expectations, because you think that Darkthrone, is revisiting their previous album, but then it gets into tempo shifts and it gets into really unique territory. In terms of production, the guitar tone is also at times a little bit different than Transylvanian Hunger, and
it's probably a little more defined on this record, in my opinion. I think the guitar tone is a bit more refined, and honestly, the overall production sounds a little bit more crisper. Although that's kind of a weird thing to say when you're still talking about a raw Darkthrone record, but it still sounds a little bit more crisp.
Yeah, it still sounds like shit in the grand scheme.
Yeah, yeah. It's like you're moving to a slightly better potato. I don't know.
On the first one, they recorded on a raw potato. This one, they're recording on a slightly less raw potato.
Yeah, it was boiled slightly.
Yeah.
And actually, it's funny you mentioned that because this one was recorded on the 4-track Necrohell, and I think it's very cool how Fenris went about with the bass recording on this. And I've always thought this was one of the coolest, innovations, so to speak. He was very resourceful, is the word I'm looking for. So the 4-track obviously has 4 slots on it. The first one, he mic'd the drums, sent it to a mixer, then plugged that directly into the 4-track. Then that left 1 for bass, 1 for vocals, and 2 tracks for guitar. Now for bass, he took the tape out of the 4-track tape recorder, put it into a tape deck, plugged his bass directly into the tape deck, and played over it as it dubbed onto a separate tape. So in the end, the master was just a cassette tape, a plain cassette tape. And I think that's really cool how he did that and was able to take what little bit he had and made it work. And honestly, the bass tone on this record is far more defined than on Transylvanian Hunger. Transylvanian Hunger is practically non-existent.
Yeah, it's very difficult to hear it on Transylvanian Hunger. It's like it's not even there. I mean, you have so many, high frequencies. The treble range is pretty much all you hear. You're not going to hear a lot of the lower, and even the mid-range frequencies are, very undefined. They're very muddy and almost drowned out completely. But on Panzerfaust, I mean, the bass, at least for me, is almost clearly defined alongside the guitar, and given what Sean said about the production and how the recording happened for the bass and the guitars and everything, it's a very unique sound that you find on the record. There's probably nothing you'll ever hear like that.
That audible bass tone is definitely something that adds another unexpected layer to this record. Over the previous Darkthrone black metal albums. Whereas on Transylvanian Hunger, the bass track was basically, bassist, go get some beer. That's pretty
We don't
much
need you anymore.
Go get the beer.
Yeah. The thing is, too, that I really like about this record is it brings you back to the Transylvanian Hunger sound with the first one, but then when Triumphant Gleam comes in,
yeah,
this is when the Celtic Frost worship really comes into play. It sounds just like something off Morbid Tales or The Emperor's Return, or even if you want to go back to like Apocalyptic Raids from Hellhammer. You can really hear them wear the influence of that band on their sleeve, and I think it's really cool because especially the one part, the dun 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 riff.
Yeah, that's something you would have never gotten on Transylvanian Hunger.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so when they they put out Panzerfaust, I bet you the majority of the fans that were into Darkthrone were kind of like, thrown for a loop when they heard that.
Yeah, but the thing is,
I sure was.
Yeah, the thing is too is at that time, I mean, Celtic Frost never really got the respect they deserved until far after their demise. And I mean, that's not just me saying that as them being my favorite band. It's something even Fenris said, that it didn't click with people till many years later. Maybe some in the underground, especially in the Black Circle, quote unquote, where the bands like Euronymous got his name taken from Euronymous of a Hellhammer song. those were bands that never really got a lot of recognition, though. Not a lot of bands really paid a true homage to them. And I feel like this record really pays tribute to Celtic Frost in such an awesome way. That the song Triumphant Gleam, though, it just sounds identical to like a more blackened version of something off Morbid Tales or The Emperor's Return, which I think is really awesome. And the fact that they were able to take that Celtic Frost sound, what Fenris was, and make it his own, and then have Nocturnal Culto do his harsh like screams, but at the same time have him have this Tom G. Warrior like grunt to him, is absolutely awesome.
Yeah, their incorporation of those Celtic Frost influences into the black metal sound was just absolutely amazing. I mean, it's interesting listening to this album. Obviously, it's still very much in the treble range, but you also, because of the bass, the way it's produced, and because of those Celtic Frost influences, you get those really heavy moments as well, and the dichotomy of those two different sounds is really, really cool.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, with Transylvanian Hunger, it would be difficult, at least in my personal opinion, to call the majority of the tracks on Transylvanian Hunger, heavy, in a sense of the word. But
Not at all.
The Panzerfaust, Hordes of Nebula, and Quintessence are heavy, heavy songs, at least for me.
Oh yeah.
Like Hordes of Nebula, especially.
Yeah, that's the next thing I was going to talk about was Hordes of Nebula. That song is easily, I would say, the heaviest song that Darkthrone has ever written in their entire discography.
I mean, that is a destructive track. Like the way they bend the guitar and just so fucking awesome.
Yeah, the main riff to that is just absolutely destructive, and once again bringing back the Celtic Frost and Hellhammer vibe to it. That one, to me, almost reminds me more of Hellhammer, in a way, because of how much more primitive it is compared to Triumphant Gleam. Triumphant Gleam, I believe this was actually the one where Fenris said that he was being a fancy pants with one of the fills in that song. That one had much more in line with Celtic Frost, seeing as Hellhammer was basically a more primitive version of Celtic Frost. And this one seemed to be more of an homage to Hellhammer in that aspect, almost reminded me of the song Buried and Forgotten, with that very driving sort of heavy riff. And the thing is with this song, too, is, once again, it kind of follows along the trend of Transylvanian Hunger, where it's just so stripped down with just, like, maybe 4 riffs in that whole song.
Yeah.
But it works so damn well. And the vocal performance that Nocturnal Culto does on this song is just so barbaric. It feels like he's just shredding his throat open. And it wouldn't surprise me if this was the song that he was recording that Fenris felt in the other room.
Yeah, this is definitely, by far, my personal favorite vocal performance on a Darkthrone record. Now, you guys both know I'm not too into the later era of Darkthrone, but, on the first black metal records, the first 4, the Hordes of Nebula is by far my favorite vocal performance and probably my favorite guitar part in any Darkthrone song. I mean, even the main riff of it is, 4 or 5 notes in total? Yeah. And half of them are just open notes, basically? But it's such a memorable and heavy riff. It's awesome.
Absolutely
there's very little like it,
It's absolutely iconic, and that's why Nocturnal Culto plays that song live with Sark, or if he goes on stage with like Enslaved or Satyricon. This is one song that they usually go to because of how heavy and driving it is and how iconic it is in terms of Norwegian black metal. Because once again, Darkthrone were way ahead of the game in Norwegian black metal, because you had Mayhem doing more or less what I would consider to be traditional black metal, maybe having it venture more into some melodic tendencies and a bit of the chaotic barbaric side every once in a while. Like Death Crush, definitely, and that's like a record that actually influenced Fenris. But then you get like De Mysteries, where it's a bit cleaner and all that. Then you have Burzum going off. I believe at this time he was actually arrested, but with the records that he was releasing at that time were much more atmospheric and I don't want to use the term. I'm trying to think of the right word for it. Much more fantasy based. Then you have bands such as like Emperor that were taking black metal in anything but a barbaric direction, adding lots of orchestrations and creating these absolutely massive sounds. Whereas Darkthrone, they started slightly technical and then they moved even more primitive. And with this record, I would say it's by far the most simplistic record. And Hordes and Nebula is one of those songs that make it not only an iconic record, in my opinion, but it really defined and changed the landscape, in my opinion, of Norwegian black metal, because there wasn't anything that sounded like this. And honestly, to this day, no other band has really done this particular sound. There's been thousands of Darkthrone clones in the aspect of Transylvanian Hunger worship, but this song stands out the most because it is one of the most unique songs in black metal, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, that's very, very true. It's interesting. It's again from a songwriting perspective how you can create something so iconic and original, and yet not have it be overly complex. Have it be really simple, but be, just extraordinary, revolutionary at the same time.
It really is. Like, now I said before when we were talking about Transylvanian Hunger that I felt like that record helped progress black metal and help move black metal forward. But Panzerfaust did the same thing, just in a much different way. Where Transylvanian Hunger, like Sean had said, you have thousands of bands ripping off that sound, ripping off that style. There's very few that can capture the essence that you would get on Panzerfaust. There are a few bands that have tried, and not many that have succeeded, obviously.
Yeah.
Panzerfaust is another record that I felt like showcased that black metal could go even further. Like, I think Panzerfaust pushes black metal even further than Transylvanian Hunger, and that's why I personally think Panzerfaust is a better record. I like it a lot more than Transylvanian Hunger.
Absolutely. I mean, I love both albums for different reasons, and I would give both a 10 to them in terms of a score for completely different reasons. But if I had to pick one Darkthrone record to stick with and only listen to that one for the rest of my life, it would be Panzerfaust. The whole thing, too, with this is now it goes back and forth between the Transylvanian Hunger sound and the more Celtic Frost worship sort of thing that they were doing with Triumphant Gleam and the Hordes Nebula, because the following two tracks continue down the path of straight black metal once again. And the interesting thing is the ones that are Norwegian have more of a Transylvanian Hunger vibe, whereas like the song Beholding the Throne of Might, that one has, I almost want to say it feels slightly like early Satyricon in an odd way, not necessarily in the medieval sort of sounds, but in terms of the riffing on that song, it definitely has more in line with that sort of stuff. But at the same time, it was still original because it didn't sound like anything else at the time. And people are probably rolling their eyes as they're watching this right now when I said that it's original sounding, because so many bands have regurgitated this sound. But keep in mind, 1995, there wasn't much that sounded like this. And that's the beauty of those two songs, is it brings back the pure, raw black metal aggression of Transylvanian Hunger. But it keeps the album interesting because the first time you listen to this, you don't know what you're going to get. Once when you hear Triumphant Gleam, you're like, well, I don't know what I'm going to hear from now on. Because it starts off so fast. Yeah. it starts off fast, and then the tempo just goes down further and further, and then it gets brought back up. So I remember the first time I heard this, going from Transylvanian Hunger to this album, I was like, what the dick am I listening to? And I think it's just absolutely perfect, the flow of this record, and how everything builds up. And this is a slight bias to me because Quintessence is my favorite Darkthrone song in every single way. So it's going to be slightly biased when I say this, but I feel like the whole album, as it goes through this roller coaster of tempos, it really leads to Quintessence to end off the metal part of this album.
Definitely.
Yeah, which is also one of the best guitar parts on any Darkthrone record. The main riff, especially, is iconic for me when I think of black metal. Like, there are a few tracks I go to, you got Transylvanian Hunger, and Quintessence is another one that I immediately go to when I think of black metal. I mean, it gets stuck in my head so often now that, it just showcases how memorable the riff is and how memorable the entire song and the entire album are, as a whole.
Definitely. The riffing on this album is very, very bold. Definitely, I think the most, memorable in terms of, maybe not in terms of, the melody, but in terms of the riffing. And the beautiful thing about Quintessence, I think, since we're talking about that track, is it has a trance-like quality with that incredible riff that gets repeated over and over again. It's interesting, but I feel like Quintessence almost has a kind of a Burzum feel in terms of the riff writing.
Yeah, that's something
Well, absolutely. I can definitely see where you're coming from with that. I mean, there are a lot of parts on here. Well, the track, I mean, not the album, but the track,
Yeah.
Alone, that do feel a little bit Burzum-y, if I can say that. Burzum-y, that's a weird fucking word. And, I mean, this is the one track on the record that Varg wrote the lyrics for, too, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Ironically enough, I'm pretty sure.
The thing is, too, that makes it so Burzum-esque to me is the absolutely immersive atmosphere of the song. Because once when you read the lyrics to it as you're listening, you really get sucked into this sort of forest place. But I feel like the lyrics to this song are among the best in Darkthrone's discography. I love how powerful those lyrics are. I drank the depth in one single sip. Like, probably my favorite part of the whole song, and my favorite lyric of the whole song is it's, I forgot the exact line. Let me grab the record. I don't want to screw it up because it's such a perfect line. 10 hungry waves, they swallowed my ship. Oh, I steadily walked back home, and I only got wet on my feet. That is an extremely powerful lyric, and the way Nocturnal Culto delivers that is the most savage vocal performance, not only in Darkthrone's discography, but I would say probably one of the most savage, period, in metal history. He just screams it with so much anger and vigor that you just feel overwhelmed by it, and it really drives home that sort of triumphant feel to it. And combine that with the perfectly stripped down drumming that Fenriz did on that song, where it's just such a simple drum beat. Anybody that can sit behind a drum set for more than 5 minutes can learn it. It's so simple, but it works perfectly with that basic riff and those barbaric vocals. And the thing is, too, that with that one part when Nocturnal Culto screams, I steadily walked back home and I only got wet on my feet, building up to that, you actually hear a little bit of bass work going along, accenting each word a little bit and kind of winding down the song. And then as he screams that final part, you get that little drum fill that Fenris does, followed by the kick snare, then straight back into that main riff. It is such a well-constructed song that every single time I hear it, I get the same feeling I did the first time. And to me, that speaks volumes, not only about that song, but this record. That's so timeless. I still get the same feeling I did the first time I heard it.
Definitely. It is timeless, and it has a deceiving amount of depth to it, despite its simplicity.
You know, and that's the thing about Panzerfaust as a whole. I feel, you know, Quintessence, and the Hordes of Nebula are prime examples of this. On the surface, they may seem, you know, very simplistic. You only have a few notes here and there, or a few riffs, a few power chords played in succession. But when you really, you know, get down deep into the record, you find the depth in all those songs. You find the real wonder in the riffing and the atmosphere that they're crafting on the record, and especially the vocal performance here. You know, on pretty much all these songs, it is phenomenal. But you know, as Sean was just saying, especially on Quintessence, it's almost brutal. I mean, you can feel the pain that he's trying to convey, you know, via his vocal performance. Not a lot that can match up to that. Especially that one passage you were talking about, Sean. I steadily walked by home and I only got wet on my feet. That part is mind-blowing, just in general.
Yeah. I did not think that he could outdo himself in terms of vocal performance from Transylvanian Hunger, but he did. I mean,
oh, absolutely.
The level of power and just brutal, extreme emotion that's expressed through his vocals is absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one of the things about this album that makes this album so perfect in my eyes is the vocals are so top-notch and aggressive and almost over the top with his delivery that it really brings this album from musically being the best to also vocally being the best. And it's just insane to me how much he progressed as a vocalist within those albums. I mean, if you go back and listen to Soulside Journey, he's doing typical death metal vocals, and then immediately when you get Blaze in Northern Sky, I can't imagine what fans of Soulside Journey thought when they first heard that. Because the shift, not only in sound, but his vocals, was insane. And it worked really well on those first two records. Transylvanian Hunger, he started to hone it in, and then on Panzerfaust, he mastered it. And the other thing, too, that I want to talk about is the final track. I'm going to try to say it. Snow og Granskog.
It translates into Snow and Spruce Forest outro.
And, you know, it's a perfect name for it, considering, well, obviously it's an outro, but the way the synthesizer sounds on that, it really does have this sort of cold sound to it. The way it really, it's hard to describe because I'm not that good when it comes to describing keyboards and synth, because that's not my main thing. But the way the synth sounds and what is being played really has this ice-cold feel to it, and it's very peaceful and tranquil, almost like being in a spruce forest in the middle of the night in winter.
Oh, true,
and
yeah.
It's one of those things where the title of it, when translated, fits so perfectly. I can't imagine it being called anything else. because even if it was, I would still get those visions in my head of that. And with the spoken word, which I believe is actually Fenris, it just adds to it a little bit more, and just ends this album off in such a beautiful way, which is so weird considering how much of an ugly record this is.
Yeah,
It really kind of takes things and like flips it 180, especially going from Quintessence to this, outro track. It's such a jarring change, but at the same time, it flows so well, and it gives you, such a, again, kind of a beautiful end to the record. You know, it's again, it's hard to describe. I'm trying to think of a word to put to it, but I suck and I can't. So
it's this album is just an incredibly diverse experience, and it's an absolutely perfect ending note. And speaking to what you're talking about, the keyboards conveying that ice cold atmosphere, that's pretty rare to get right. I mean, so often keyboards can be misused in terms of sound, melody, and production, but that was just absolutely a perfect way to create that atmosphere and a perfect element to end the album off, which is just an incredible, diverse journey.
The song really winds you down from the epic ending of Quintessence. It really brings you back down to a more peaceful state, which I think is perfect. And
on
this
top of
album
the
is absolute perfection in my opinion. Like, it ends it perfectly. There's nothing I can gripe on it about.
on top of the keyboard and the synth work in that track, you have the almost like faint sounding drum to it. It sounds like it's off in the distance almost, like
Yeah.
like you were saying, like you're it's the middle of the night and you're in that spruce forest. There's snow covering the entire landscape, and it sounds like off in the distance you hear, those faint drum beats, like the kick drum and the slight snare that plays during that track.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, some of that stuff, I believe that track in particular was something that Fenris, if I'm correct, was actually written for, or he had something like this in mind for Isengard. And if you haven't listened to Isengard, it's Fenris' solo project, which is weird considering Darkthrone at this time was basically just him. But it really works it would work perfectly on an Isengard album, and it works even better on Panzerfaust. And you could even draw similarities between Panzerfaust and Isengard in many ways. The main difference would just be the vocals and some of the more folk-based instrumentation. But it just goes to show you what Fenris can really do when he sits down and wants to create something, just really create music in general, because even in my opinion, with the newer Darkthrone era, he's been writing some of the best songs on those records. When it's between him and Nocturnal Culto, 9 times out of 10, I prefer the song that Fenris writes. And I just think it's an awesome album from an amazing band with an absolutely vast discography that pretty much has something for everyone.
Yeah, it really does. It's odd that their debut is basically death metal. Then they moved on to a raw, cold, atmospheric black metal sound, and later moved on to like that like crust punk weird sound, and then finally you have the Underground Resistance that's like traditional heavy metal.
Yeah, and
almost.
Like Circle the Wagons was almost like Motorhead worship in many ways. It reminded me of Motorhead a lot, but personally I like Circle the Wagons better than any Motorhead album as a whole.
I'm waiting for Fenris to get Ear Gauges and do a deathcore album.
He could do it. That's the thing.
It
I
would
trust him
probably
with
be-
any style.
It would probably be the best deathcore album ever.
Yeah, that's the weird thing is like they can write any style they want and it turns out awesome every single time. I hate crust punk with a passion. I hate punk in general. But damn it, like The Cult is Alive and FOAD and Darkthrones and Flags are great albums. I almost said Black Fags. Oops.
Oh, okay, cool, great, awesome.
But no, they did those albums great. The death metal album is fantastic. The demos are great. This is just a band with an awesome discography, and for someone, I would recommend, honestly, guys, if you have never listened to Darkthrone a day in your life, and I know some of my subscribers haven't, this is the album to grab, in my opinion. But
Yeah, it's absolute perfection. It's an incredible attestment to Fenris's beautiful songwriting, and it's revolutionary.
It is, and I mean, I'll put it this way: for anyone who was subscribed to me or still is for whatever reason, on my channel, Absent Productions, you know damn well that this would be kind of out of left field for me, but both Transylvanian Hunger and Panzerfaust were my gateway into the genre of black metal and the sound of black metal, and to this day, we're talking 2 or 3 years later since first being, really introduced to it, it's become one of my favorite styles. And it's at the point now where the majority of my listening outside of modern progressive metal will be black metal now. So that's what, that's where my progression or like regression has gone, I guess. So it's all thanks to both Panzerfaust and Transylvanian Hunger that I was able to break into the black metal sound and the style and the genre.
The succubus of the abyss has taken Brandon, and we'll never let him go.
I have a little bit of time. I don't know if you guys do, but if want to answer maybe a couple questions in the chat or whatever, that'd be cool.
Sure. Let me pull up the comments and see if I can.
My internet connection, for those of you guys that don't know, is about on par with dial-up. I live in the middle of upstate New York, which is nowhere. It's little Canada filled with hatred and despair. Sadness. You drive through upstate New York, everyone's just got a permanent look of disappointment on their face. That's not even a quote from me. That's a quote from Louis C.K. He's been to upstate New York, and that is what he had to say about it. Everyone has a permanent look of disappointment, and part of that reason is internet connection.
And interestingly enough, I went to upstate New York once, and it was really weird. I saw people on like porches with like shotguns and shit, and I'm like, where the fuck am I? And I was a teenager at the time. I was on vacation with my parents, and a cop pulled us over, and he was like, "You're not from around here, are you?" And we're like, "No." He was like, "Well, you best turn around. Let me give you some directions out of here."
Yep,
oh boy,
that's my area.
Good. All right, I got the comments pulled up here. Let's see what we got. All right, we got someone who wants you guys to talk about Gree. I know you both really like Gree.
Amazing band, amazing discography. Last album was perfect. That's really all I can say. One of the best atmospheric black metal bands to come out of Canada.
Talk about Agalloch, talk about Altar of Plagues. Agalloch, well, that's Sean's deal right there. He is the man to go to for Agalloch.
I am a man that loves his Agalloch. Just a quick rundown of what I think of their discography. Spoiler, the lowest score I'd give everything is a 9. The Mantle I would give 10. That's my second favorite album of all time, right behind Monotheist by Celtic Frost. Their last album was near perfect. I can't think of a single bad thing to say about Agalock. Even when they experiment and it's weird, like the white and gray EPs, they were still awesome.
Hell, even I've been into Agalock since like 2006, 2007. You know, like, even though I was not into black metal, I probably wouldn't have even known what the term black metal was, but I've been into Agalock for a long time myself, too. Ashes Against the Grain is fucking awesome. That's my favorite by them. The Mantle is a great album. And most of their discography is great. Marrow of the Spirit, not one I'm too fond of, personally, but still a solid album. Altar of Plagues, well, all three of us can attest to them being fucking awesome.
Oh yeah,
especially Pat.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm absolutely obsessed with Altar of Plagues, and I found out about them with their most recent album, Teeth, Glory, and Injury, and then they broke up, which happens. That happens a lot to me. I'm a big fan of Agalock. The Mantle is just fucking perfection. I cannot wait till that gets a repress, which it is. And I absolutely love the Serpent and the Spear. I feel like the Serpent and the Spear, yes. The Serpent and the Spear.
It's quite the primitive record.
Yeah. I'm surprised at actually the amount of hate that album gets, because I absolutely love it. I think it is a highly consistent work. I think it's really ethereal. I think it's stylistically consistent. It's fucking brilliant.
I don't think it's up to par with like a Mantle or an Ashes, but I mean, it's a solid record. I bought it day one, of course. I thought it was a good record.
I wish them luck on trying to replicate the magic of the Mantle. I love them. They're great dudes. They make great music, but damn it, I don't think anyone could ever match the magic of the Mantle or Ashes Against the Grain. That is just an insane effort. And if I start to lag, so you guys know, it just thundered outside my window, and because I have a terrible internet connection combined with a terrible Wi-Fi router, any sort of storm, my internet likes to take a big old dump.
That's okay. I mean, I get Comcast, so if it rains or if it winds too hard, then internet's gone for days.
Going back to Glee, I just want to say what an absolutely fucking brilliant album Il Éteint une Forêt is. Which is actually, interestingly enough, it's really kind of a depressive, suicidal album. And then the evolution into the newest album, which I will not say the name of because it's too bloody long and I can't pronounce it. But that album is so bloody lush and incredible and uses so many different instruments and is so just incredibly beautiful.
The thing that was so odd about that record to me that made it stand out so much in black metal is the sheer warmth of it. It's actually a warm black metal record, and the only way I can describe it, it's like the album I can't say, the more depressive one. That one's more of a harsh journey, and it's a bit colder. Yeah. And this one's almost like you've survived the storm and you found a cabin that's well lit and everything. And I'm kind of jacking that sort of thing from what John Hamm said about Pale Folklore and the Mantle, where Pale Folklore was being stuck in the woods in a snowstorm and the Mantle was finding a warm cabin. That's how I view those two Glee albums as well.
Let's see, what do we got here? Let me refresh, see if there's anything.
Any new. Stupidity? That'd be fun.
Oh, that would be fun.
Why are you such faggots?
I'm waiting
Why
for that
do you guys suck? You guys are a bunch of posers.
I'm waiting for a edgy edgelord to show up. You guys know who I'm talking about. My subscribers don't, because I don't want to give that man any more. Well, that person any attention. I'll never call him a man.
The pig farmer.
But that'd be fun if he showed up.
Let's see. Oh, we got Ragnarok Reviews, aka Jeff,
aka Dad.
Hey, Dad.
Fuck off.
Why did you abandon us, Dad? Why?
Snot777, awesome name, said, "Could you do death metal essentials?" That's on you, Sean.
I'm getting so out of death metal, and I'm so over 90% of death metal. It just sickens me to listen to most old school death metal. I only dig some brutal death metal and slam, and I'm gonna get so much crap for saying this, but I like deathcore at this point more than death metal because it's at least more diverse. So I don't know. I'll be reviewing and talking about whatever the hell I want because I'm basically done with reviews.
Yeah. Oh, spoiler! I just agreed with that. Whoops. Okay, we have a comment says, so who is Brandon, just out of curiosity? Yeah, I figured that would happen.
Well, that goes with the faggot question.
Exactly. There you go. Enough said. I used to review here on YouTube a couple of years ago. I stopped in, 2013? Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to run a channel called Absent Productions, and that's about it. That's the reviewing and stuff.
You can't find his videos anymore because he's a dick and he deleted his videos.
They are all gone.
That's so sad. So sad.
Everyone harass him and tell him to start making videos on vinyl at least.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll see. Maybe. Spoiler.
I'm going to provide a link to his channel in the description once when this uploads. Go there and just harass him on the comment thing on his channel. If you could post pictures, put some dick pics or something, I don't know.
Yeah, all right, I'll accept it. Sure, fine. We got a guy that says he wants to know our thoughts on Summer Slaughter. It's mixed, I'm
gonna pull up the lineup right now because I like some of it and I really don't like another part of it. So give me 1 second.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the tour right now. All right, it is Arch Enemy headlining with Born of Osiris, Veil of Maya, The Acacia Strain, Obscura, After the Burial, Cattle Decapitation, and Beyond Creation. I enjoy Beyond Creation a little bit. Cattle Decap, I've already seen them. Definitely not my thing. They're like Death Grind or something like that. Yeah, not my thing. After the Burial, I somewhat enjoy them. Their 2 recent records, I think, are all right. Obscura, definitely a decent band. Acacia Strain, I'm not into that, but I know you guys are.
My favorite band on that lineup.
Veil of Maya. New record sucks, sorry. But, all the other stuff I really like. Born of Osiris, more so The Discovery and Tomorrow We Die Alive. I like those. Their first EP and their first album, not so much. Arch Enemy, I've already seen Arch Enemy. I have absolutely no interest in seeing them. If I do go, I'll be leaving after Born of Osiris personally. I got no interest in staying for Arch Enemy.
For me, I'm probably not going to go to it because I would have to travel to New York City, and that's like 6-7 hours.
Yeah, for me, it's only about 2 hours for me to go down.
The thing is like, if there was I know they're going to announce openers, and if there's a sick opener, then I'd probably go. Beyond Creation, I dig them. Cattle Decap is amazing. After the Burial is incredible live, even though I feel like their guitarists are kind of cocky douchebags. Obscura, I dig them. They're not really my thing anymore. The Acacia Strain, they're the band that I would go for if I had to pick one. Everything they've done is incredible in my book, and they've just gotten better as they go. Like Coma Witch is incredible, barbaric, suffocatingly heavy record. Veil of Maya, Born of Osiris, Arch Enemy.
Sorry, Duncan, we love you, bud.
This is one where I feel like the undercards is actually pretty interesting and solid. I mean, I'm not like a huge fan of Obscura, but I think that they would be fun to see live.
Yeah,
I absolutely love the Acacia Strain. That is just some obnoxious knuckle drinking.
It's some ignorant ass deathcore.
And I absolutely fucking adore Cattle Decapitation. I would fucking love to see them live. Arch Enemy is kind of a weird choice.
They're really
okay,
kind of like they're past their prime.
okay.
You know, I mean,
I'm gonna
they're
be the elitist fucking douchebag here, and I'm gonna say arch plebemy.
Yeah, people ask me what I think of them. I can't stomach them, honestly. I'm so over melodic death metal. It's insane. I only listen to Amon Amarth on occasion. Dark Tranquillity's later albums, except for that last ungodly, awful piece of garbage that they released. I can't remember what that thing's called. In Flames can die for all I care. I don't want the members to die. Don't before people. If that band broke up, I wouldn't shed a tear.
No, I want them to legitimately die.
Okay.
I'm praying for their deaths.
Well, I mean, if that's the way it's gonna be, all right.
Well, I guess I might as well hope for that.
All right. Any music outside of metal any of you like? Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I think all of us,
Yeah,
have interests outside of metal for sure.
Nope, only black metal, but still war metal. Blasphemy, fucking Barrett, Revenge
Fucking
Conquer.
Barrett.
Kill the fucking posers.
Fucking grave desecration.
Grave desecration, Dimebag Daryl.
Oh, yeah, Dimebag Daryl. No one's gonna know what the hell we're talking about.
No one's gonna get that, except unless that guy watches this video. Then shout out to you, bro. No, for music outside of metal, one of my all-time favorite records is Fever Ray, self-titled, which I'm going to talk about. I listen to a lot of folk music, Stonehagel, Hex Vessel is definitely one of my favorites. Lord Wind, Omnia. There's just a bunch. Londum, they started off as a metal band, but turned into pure acoustic folk music / folk rock, and amazing stuff. Yeah, I dig a lot of it. Helget's Room Dance. I like some hip hop. People ask me about hip hop, so I'm gonna just clear this up. Cage is my favorite rapper. Kill the Architect is my favorite album from him. It's dark, it's relaxing, it's perfect in my opinion. I like older Yelawolf, Trunk Music era, and before. Anything afterwards is just I dig early Tyler, the Creator, once again. I like some parts of Goblin, but anything after that. Earl Sweatshirt, he's been consistently awesome.
Dude, the new Earl record. Whew. Fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Death Grips is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like fucking 41, so I don't know how many of you knew that, but now you knew. So I mean, I was listening.
Cat's out of the bag.
Cat's out of the bag. So
Coco comes out and just scratches.
Yeah, fucking poser. So I mean, I listened to non-metal music for a good 15 years of my life. Growing up, I loved kind of the classic stuff. My dad was into like Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, shit like that, and then I got into Genesis and Phil Collins because I'm a faggot. And then got into metal, but recently, like outside of metal, I've been getting into harsh noise because I'm a broken human being.
Yep. Swallowing bile.
Yeah. I've also been getting into 80s inspired synthwave from Brandon, so like Perturbator, the soundtrack from the Hotline Miami game. That stuff's awesome. I really love Sigur Rós, and that.
Yeah, that's who I was gonna bring up for sure.
That
Sigur Rós, or however the hell you say it.
Yeah, that post-rock thing that they do.
Explosions in the Sky, I'm very big into.
One other thing I'm just going to throw out there real quick. Him is one of my all-time favorite bands. I don't care what you call me. Come fight me. I live in upstate New York. Him is one of my all-time favorites. Billy Vallow is an amazing singer.
I've seen him. I've seen him live. I paid to go see them, so...
Man, I'm jealous. I'm jealous as hell. You don't realize how bad I want to see them, and you saw them on the Venus Doom tour. They're one of my favorite albums from them. Oh, I hate you. I get really excited and passionate about him, guys. I'm sorry.
I saw them. I don't know, maybe 6 years, 6, 7. No, dude, longer than that. That was like 2007 or 2008 or some shit like that. That's a long.
Yeah,
fucking
Venus
time.
Doom. I hate you.
Jeez, it's 2015. What am I doing with my life? I was thinking, that was like 2 years ago, right? Nope, that was almost 10 years ago. Oh fuck.
Yeah, I dig post-rock stuff too, and the synth wave that Pat was talking about.
Yeah, I've gotten these two into Perturbator a lot. Thank fuck.
Yep.
Here's a good question. What is your opinion on the Burzum Prison albums?
They're not bad, but they're not great. They're just whatever to me. I like however you say it.
That's good.
That one I like, not Dowdy Bowder is the other one. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the Prison albums. They're not awful, but they're not great.
Yeah, it's not like Dirty Balls and are albums
Dirty
that
Balls.
I don't go out of my way to listen to. Wouldn't say that they're bad. They're certainly not on the level of Skintar.
Speaking
of horribleness.
Speaking of Burzum, it's funny you brought that up. I only just recently, tried to get into Burzum, again thanks to these two, and I just recently bought Detsamenging Bar and Philosophum on vinyl, and they sound fucking amazing. And soon enough, I'm going to be ordering. Is that a word? Ordering.
You're talking Canadian now. You're gonna order. I'm gonna order some vinyls.
Go for a rip, smock a few fivers, order a few things.
There you go. Have a 2-4 and pass it on the Chesterfield. Eh?
I'm gonna be ordering. Oh god, I'm gonna be ordering the self-titled Burzum and Havissel Taras. I'll be ordering those, soon enough when I have money to. What do you guys think about Opeth's latest album and the direction they chose to go? It's trashy, dude. It's fucking awful. It's so
That's all I have to say. It's just bad. Oh my god.
I love Blackwater Park, Ghost Reveries, Watershed, Damnation. Not so much Deliverance, but it's a solid album. My Arms, Your Horse. No one's gonna get that reference either. Orchid, Still Life. They're all great records. And then you get
Heritage is alright.
Heritage has moments, I guess. It's not horrible, but the new one, Pale Communion, I thought was a fucking snooze fest. I absolutely hated it. As a big fan of Opeth, I am extremely let down by the band. I really am.
The only redeemable thing about those albums is Michael's voice sounds incredible, because he's a great singer. That's where it ends. Everything else, to me, is just horrendous.
I mean, if he wants to create progressive music, that's totally cool. It's not like, I'm being a snob. Well, I only listen to early Opeth or whatever. But the major problem that I have with it is that the keyboards are extremely cheesy sounding, and the songwriting isn't natural. It's trying so hard to be 70s prog rock that it ends up being a cliche of it. If I want to listen to 70s prog rock, then I will listen to 70s prog rock.
That's the thing, and Ackerfeld is going out of his way with these interviews and everything, saying metal fans just don't get it. Metal fans are ignorant; they don't understand. And
well, you're just a moron.
He's pushing this whole we're above you thing, and that's really annoying to me. It's really pissing me off. When the reality of the matter is, I mean, if you enjoy those albums, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with enjoying those. I think they're bad, but that's just because I'm a big fan of their earlier works.
Yeah, do what you want, but don't act like you're king shit because you're doing it.
Yeah, that's the issue with it.
We're just too shallow to understand.
like we all have pretty diverse musical tastes. Like there's
Yeah,
no, elitism here with metal or anything. There's plenty of stuff that isn't metal that I love, but what Ackerfeld, and of course the rest of the band, I'm not going to put it all on him. What they're all doing here is they're crafting what is what I consider, and what I've said jokingly, but it's almost true. They've crafted a regressive metal record, is what they've
yeah,
done. Rather than being the forward-thinking, progressive, groundbreaking band of Opeth, they are this shell of what they once were. This regressive, hey, let's go back 50 years to a time when music sounded less unique and cool, and just throw that out there.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's my opinion on it. I have
Yeah,
very
yeah,
strong feelings
yeah.
about the latest
Yeah.
Opeth offerings. Let's see what we got here. What do you guys think about post black metal? Bands like Death Heaven and Lantlos. Lantlos is awesome, really.
Great stuff
And
all around, but I mean, every genre has its mediocre stuff, but it's
Death
still good.
Heaven. I actually let's see if I actually have the Sunbather
Oh!
like right on my bed. um, I'm a big fan of Death Heaven. Sunbather was personally probably my favorite record of 2013. I thought it was a beautiful, beautiful record. I know a lot of people hate the band, and a lot of people hate anyone who likes the band. So hey, if I'm a poser, well, fuck me, right? I'm wearing a fucking Periphery shirt, so what the hell can I say?
Yeah, I like Death Heaven a lot. My favorite of the post black metal would be every Alcest album up to that ungodly, terrible
Yeah.
piece of garbage of Shelter.
Right.
See, I love Shelter too, but I'm a big fan
Well, it's
of
because you got
post.
terrible taste, so that's irrelevant.
I'm a big fan of dream pop and post rock, so he just
Those
combined
are-
those two things together. And that was awesome for me. But yeah, dude,
Yeah.
like Akale Daloon, fucking 10 out
Oh,
of
yeah.
10.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Incredible record.
I really absolutely love the the lush soundscapes being added to black metal. With what they're doing with post rock, I absolutely love. Death Heaven and Lantlos is absolutely beautiful and stunning. None of us here are the type of cult kids who believe in limiting black metal to only this narrow little perspective.
Blasphemy, fucking bear, Black Witchery, Revenge, Conqueror, Sarcophago, Early Bathory, Hellhammer, anything else is poser. Black metal, no compromises, only grains in her face.
Jesus Christ. All right, let's take a couple more questions before we hop off of here. Opinion on Inquisition, and also just for count, favorite hymn album? Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
Alright.
it would just only be for count.
Oh, fuck you guys. Alright, for favorite hymn album, it's either a tie between Razorblade Romance or Venus Doom. Both are amazing records in completely different ways. Venus Doom is much more of a somber, serious, borderline doom metal record at points. Definitely has a much more depressing vibe to it, but also still incredibly beautiful, whereas Razorblade Romance is just full of classics of him, so yeah, I love both albums.
If I had to, I mean, I do enjoy a little bit of him. What the hell is the name of the album? Hold on. Darklight. I think Darklight is a really solid album.
Darklight's really good.
That if I had to pick one, that would probably be the one I would go for.
Pat's favorite album is the one they never made. For Inquisition, awesome band. Absolutely great riffs. I love the atmosphere that they deliver with their guitar playing. The vocals are awesome. I know it turns off a lot of people, Brandon. But the one thing that I really enjoy, though, about Inquisition is their songwriting and their more slower moments. I think that's when they really shine. And if they did a whole album of just like 10-minute songs that are slower and more atmospheric and droning, that would probably be one of the best black metal records to come out in years. I have a feeling they could do something amazing if they stuck with that. But the fast stuff is still really good too. I dig them a lot.
Yeah, I dig Inquisition too. The riffs is really what stands out. I mean, really incredible riffs, really memorable riffs. The vocals, it did take me, a while to get into. If you could just imagine Kermit the Frog wearing corpse paint, but now I haven't gotten into them. I would never take them out. I think they really add to the sound. Yeah.
To me, it's his vocals almost remind me of a mix of Abbott and Attila from Mayhem.
It took me a long time to get into Attila too.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, Attila, great band, man.
They're on par with Limp Bizkit. Just gonna throw that one out there.
Bruh, I hate cunts.
Suck my fuck.
Suck my fuck.
I got a race car. I drive fast as fuck. You have a bitch with big tits, so here's a dick she can suck.
10 out of 10. Poetry. All right. Let's take like two more. Favorite clean vocalists in metal. Oh, dude, I have so many.
For me, either Jonas Sorensk from Catatonia. I love Nij from Alcest. He's an amazing singer, regardless of how awful Shelter was. Same goes for Michael from Opeth. Aaron from My Dying Bride, though, his delivery is among the best in all of metal, in my opinion. He's just such an emotional, beautiful, clean vocalist. I can't say enough about him. So if I had to pick one clean vocalist, it'd either be him or Jonas Sorensk from Catatonia.
For me, I mean, there's a bunch I have to mention. Devin Townsend, for one, he's my favorite vocalist. Daniel Tompkins from Tesseract. Jonathan Carpenter, he was in The Contortionist for their first couple records, and now Mike Lassard, who used to be in Last Chance to Reason, now he's the new vocalist of The Contortionist. Bron Daler, he's the drummer and backup vocalist of Mastodon. I love his vocals to death. Chris Barretto from Monuments, he used to be in Periphery back before they were even anything, and now he heads Monuments. He's fucking awesome. Yeah, that would probably be my big picks, for sure.
Mine would be Corathon, Dave Mustaine. No, just kidding.
Corathon's the worst singer in metal history, damn it.
but seriously,
he
my favorite vocalist who does both cleans and harshes would be Dax Riggs of Acid Bath fame. Just the incredible emotion that he conveys, and not only emotion, but he can make his voice sound as fucking creepy and morbid as the lyrics that go along with it. Yeah. I also feel like he adds notes after the lyrical parts, kind of like how Morrissey does, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, he's an amazing singer. His lyrics, though, are what really stand out to me. Scream of the Butterfly still melts my mind when I try to figure out what the hell that song means.
Yeah.
All right, let's take one final question. This is a pretty good one to end it on. Which bands have you guys seen live, and how did you get into black metal? So we've all seen countless bands live.
Yeah. If you're asking specifically of black metal, I'll just do a quick rundown of bands I've seen live, just off the top of my head. Mayhem, Watain, Revenge, Agalloch, Jax Thoth, Korpiklani, Immortal, Wolves in the Throne Room, Suicide Silence back when they had Mitch, Black Dahlia Murder multiple times, Skeleton Witch multiple times, Job for Cowboy I think 6 times. Sadly, I've seen Megadeth.
Yeah, me too.
In Flames, unfortunately. Slayer, Lamb of God, Thine Eyes Bleed, Children of Bodom a few times. Uh, After the Burial, Whitechapel. There's a bunch that I can't even think of that I've seen,
Yeah.
but
I mean, I've been
and
going to shows for like 10 years now. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. I could never go through them all. You
I
know, let's switch up the question. You can answer, Pat. One second.
yeah.
Let me just. Let's switch up the question. And what is your favorite show you ever went to? So, Pat, you can go ahead and answer first. Whatever bands you've seen.
All right. I have not seen a lot of shows, and especially haven't seen anything very recently. Just the next town over is like a long ways away because it's fucking Canada, and everything is a fucking long ways away. And I fucking, even though I fucking bought the tickets, I fucking missed the fucking Revenge,
Black Metal Warfare.
Black Metal Warfare, because the intercity buses between the two cities only ran till like fucking 8, and I didn't have enough money for the expensive cab ride home and all that shit. But I saw a lot more shows actually during my grunge days. So I've seen like Nirvana, I've seen Smashing
You're old.
Pumpkins. Yeah, because I'm fucking old. I've seen Smashing Pumpkins.
I'm sorry.
9 Inch Nails. I've seen 9 Inch Nails, and that was fucking
I've seen
killer.
Nails.
Yeah. I've also seen Megadeth and Testament, which I actually enjoyed.
Ew, I'm so sorry to hear that. For me, the two best that really, really stand out, if I had to pick the best band I've ever seen, it was Aglock. I saw them last year. It was after I interviewed them, still working on transcribing that. When people ask me, I got to transcribe it because the audio got really messed up, and I don't want to put up a half-assed interview that you can barely hear.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to make out what the band are saying and what Sean is asking because the dickheads at the venue made too much fucking noise.
Pouring ice, dragging chairs, even though they said they weren't going to make any noise during it. And John was already pissed off to begin with because we couldn't find a spot to record the interview, and Jex Thoth was sound checking for like well past how long they were even playing for a set. They just kept going and going, and they were going to play till the doors opened, till John basically had enough and told him to stop. So he was pretty annoyed at the beginning of the interview, but at the end of it, he warms up, and he was a really nice guy, along with Don Anderson. But
it was a good interview too. I've seen it, so it was good.
The show itself, though, absolutely incredible. They played for about 2 hours of a lot of material from The Serpent and the Spear. They played Limbs, some stuff from Pale Folklore. They did a little bit from everything. They played In the Great Cold Death of the Earth, and I looked like such a little bitch when that played because I was wiping tears from my eyes. That was an unbelievably powerful experience. If you ever get a chance to see Aglock, I know they're on tour right now on the West Coast, and they're going to be coming to Europe. Whatever you're doing, drop what you're doing, no matter how far away it is. I don't care. Find a way to get to that show. You will not regret it.
All right, for me, well, first, my favorite show that I ever went to, it was the tour that had Fair to Midland headlining with support from Scale the Summit and Periphery, and it was the first time seeing all those bands. And they're all some of my favorite bands. Not so much the new Periphery record; those sucked. But this was back in early 2011. So Periphery 1 hadn't been out that long. Periphery 2 was like a year and a half away. This was when Periphery was still rather, new and fresh. Periphery opened after the locals played, and it was my first time seeing them. It was fucking excellent. My first time seeing Scale the Summit. They hadn't even put out the collective yet, so it was just Carving Desert Canyons material. It was fantastic. And Fair to Midland, if you don't know who they are a extremely energetic and crazy live band. They will hang from the roof. The vocalist Darrow, he will fucking climb up anything and jump off of it. It's like Dillinger, but weirder, because they're a much weirder band. He will climb shit, he will put the fucking microphone down his throat and fucking like gurgle into it and shit.
You should poop on stage like G.G. Allen.
And he will jump headfirst into the crowd right off the stage too, which he did, by the way. And that show was just fucking perfect. But my favorite live band by far is the Dillinger Escape Plan. I think that goes without saying. If you've ever seen the Dillinger Escape Plan live, they are fucking gnarly. I've seen them twice, and they are fucking insanity personified in a fucking band's live show. So
I'm gonna put this one out there. Core bands are some of the best to see live because of crowd interaction. I know deathcore and whatnot's hated by a lot of my subscribers and stuff, but if you ever want to get into deathcore, I'm telling you, go to a show. If you don't want to get hit, don't stand near the pit, because kids are going to be swinging their arms, having epileptic seizures, and crowd killing. But if you can get in the front row and you know the words, it is a blast. I'm seeing Thy Art Is Murder next month, and I am so excited. They're the only reason why I'm going, because Devil Wears Prada's headlining.
Oh boy.
And Whitechapel's playing, and their new material is absolute garbage. And I found out they're charging people $30 to meet them, so they can go suck a fatty. Yeah, but I'm going for Thy Art, so I'm telling you guys, go to a core show if you want to get into it. Learn some of the lyrics beforehand, and it just makes it 10 times more fun. It's some of the best shows you can see.
I think my favorite show, and I'm probably going to get a lot of flack from these two guys, was a Pearl Jam concert. But the reason that it was so awesome was because every one or two shows on like the Pearl Jam tour, they will choose an insanely small venue. And on the one tour, they came to our town and played our Kitchener Odd. Oh shit, I just said the city where I live. Okay, well, come to Kitchener and fight me.
It's a big city, they won't find you.
I'll be the 4'11" one who's 41 years old. I'm Hobbit. But it was really intimate setting. Even if you don't like Pearl Jam, they are incredibly live, because they'll like make up new lyrics for their songs. They'll add to it.
Yeah, because there's no lyrics to begin with. It's all the whole crowd is just trying to yarl the same sort of yarl that Mr. Vedder's doing.
Fair enough. Fuck you.
Earl, I never knew it was Jeremy's spoken class today till like maybe a year ago. I'm like, that's what he was saying?
Yeah, apparently he bit the recess lady's breast too. that kid was fucked up. But yeah, it was awesome, and they did like 6 encores. It was a fantastic show.
Yeah, I'm sure I would probably take it live, but my God, I just can't get past his vocals. But I believe that's all the time we got.
Yeah, that was about 2 hours.
Holy
all right.
shit.
Yeah, we did about a 2-hour stream. This was good. If you guys dig this, I'll probably do this again some other time.
Yeah.
Just let me know what you guys think down below, and that's it. We're gonna end this. So if you guys want to say something before we go,
well,
please keep it at least PG-13.
Oh well, never mind.
Because I don't want my channel flagged.
Well, I'm Brandon. I used to run a channel called Absent Productions. Sean said he was gonna link it in the description, so if you wanna go sub to a channel that has no videos or anything, you can go ahead and do that.
Urge him to record videos.
Yeah, I'll throw this out there. I've gotten big into collecting vinyl, and me and the other guys here in the stream, we're big vinyl collectors, and we like to talk about vinyl and all that shit. And I have been possibly considering doing videos like they do with vinyl. So we'll think about it. Don't expect anything. I'm not promising anything. I'm not even going to give you any little small, glimpse of hope towards anything like that. But
I'm gonna hype it up so hard.
but, maybe we'll see. But yeah, I am a faggot that doesn't make videos anymore, and I like terrible music. So yeah, cool.
And I am a faggot who still makes videos. So yeah, check out my channel because I'm fun and adorable and stuff.
And his cat will poop on his bed during collection update.
Yeah. I'm starting a new video series, kind of a blog, casual freeform style, musical stuff and things, and that'll be starting Monday, so check that out.
He's going to be stuffing stuff with music.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes.
He's going to take a turkey and shove CDs in it. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time.
Yeah.
I'll be stuffing CDs in my ass in my next video, so look forward to that.
And they're going to be hymn CDs.
No, they won't, because I like those too much. I might take my POD CDs and put them in my butt. I don't know. What am I talking about? All right. Before it gets any weirder.
Okay. Let me just say that we started talking about records, and we ended talking about sticking POD records up Sean's ass. So perfect. Awesome. Great.
Oh God. All right, guys. Let me know what you guys think of all this. Black Metal Essentials will continue. The Darkthrone part is over. There will be many, many, many more parts. People wondered where the series went. It's just been I've been busy with stuff, and sometimes I just don't feel like making a video. It's not my job to constantly please you guys because I do this for myself and not anyone else. But the fact you guys dig it's awesome.
Black Metal Essentials Episode 5, Alcest Shelter. Thanks.
Yeah. Yep.
That's it.
Nope, it'll be God forbid. That's real black metal.
No, it'll be Venom.
Oh yeah,
no.
Real black metal.
Real black.
All right. Anyways, yeah, there's gonna be plenty more in this series. I'm not gonna tell you guys what albums I'm gonna do next because I don't know what I'm gonna do next, but I'll figure it out as I go. Yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and as always, keep it metal.